Hello everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. We've got some I Don't Work Here Lady stories, so let's jump right into our first story of the day by jiicaamaa. First mistake, red shirt in Target. Note, this happened when I was 18. I'm a girl, 5 feet tall, and since age 16, have always carried a pocket knife with a sort of trigger just for my peace of mind. Also, I've got a huge thing about physical contact and do not like even family or friends initiating any sort of hug, pat on the back, etc. without asking. I was in Target for the first time and I was by myself, sort of just checking it out because we'd always been too thrifty to go to Target growing up. I was minding my own business, strolling the aisles with my basket of slightly overpriced herbal tea. I end up in this cool snack section where they had seaweed packets and tossed 2 into my basket when I realized there was a man, mid-30s, early 40s, that I've seen in the same aisles as me quite a few times. No big deal, it's just a coincidence, right? I peruse a couple more sections in the store and eventually end up passing the baby/kids section and see the same middle-aged guy sort of hanging back from me, but he's following me with more intent at this point. Getting a little nervous, but it's not like anything is gonna happen to me in Target. What's he gonna do, kidnap me in the middle of a Target with hundreds of people in it? I keep going and eventually I see the kitchenware section. I stop and look up at the signs to see where exactly I want to look around. There. I take a step forward and, just as I do, the same man from earlier grabs me by my shirt collar and says, "Excuse me." And without hesitation, I grab my side, deploy my knife, point it at him and yell back, "What the freak do you think you're doing?" We're right outside an aisle and there are people around who saw him grab me. He looks shocked, jaw slacked and everything. I repeat to him again, just as loud and just as expletive-filled, "Who the freak do you think you are? Why are you following me? Why did you grab me?" He snaps out of it a bit and says, "Are employees even allowed to carry knives? What the heck are you doing? Where's your supervisor?" Now, it's my turn to look dumbfounded. I said, "I'm not an employee, and even if I was, do you really just grab people wherever you go, especially younger women?" At this point, we've got a small crowd and I feel safe enough to put my knife back in my pocket. He spits back, "Well, if you had been paying any attention, you'd know that I've been around you this whole time trying to get your attention, but you just keep walking off from me. Aren't you supposed to help people in the store?" Did you hear a word I said? I don't work here. He took a step forward to look down at me and started on about, "All you had to do was say so then. Instead, you pull a knife on me like some psycho witch." He then points out that I'm wearing a red shirt. I'm floored at this. I'm wearing a dark red and plaid long-sleeve harness crop top and black high-waisted jeans. What Target employee do you see wearing a plaid crop top? Finally, someone steps in to help. A tall, burly guy who looked like Duck Dynasty met Sons of Anarchy gets in between us and pushes the guy back and tells him that's no way to speak to anyone and says, "I saw the whole thing, you grabbed her by the collar. She has every right to be defensive." At this, the creep backed off and Ducks of Anarchy, my hero, tells him to F off. He fires off one last "crazy witch," but walks off towards the back of the store. I sincerely thanked Mr. Hero as I was truly grateful. Being a smaller person, even with a knife, you don't feel all that threatening. I took my stuff straight to the checkout and left. Never in my life have I thought about grabbing a stranger, employee of a store or otherwise, to get their attention. I wouldn't even tap on their shoulder. If you just say, "Excuse me," or "Hey," you're likely to get the attention of everyone in the immediate area. Maybe I was just raised differently, but I feel like grabbing strangers is a pretty obvious social no-no. Another note. Yes, I know it's a bit paranoid to carry a knife everywhere, especially into a Target of all places. I also know I could have handled this very public situation without taking my knife out, but when fear kicks in, instinct takes over. I wouldn't say I regret how I handled myself, but that's just, evidently, psycho crazy me. So I definitely have some curiosities after this question for people that might be wanting to comment. First thing is, do you think it was acceptable for what OP did as far as pulling out the pocket knife, especially considering they were grabbed by the collar and they're a smaller woman? The second question would be, do you approve of carrying around some kind of concealed self-protection, whether it's a pocket knife, whether it's something like pepper spray or something like that? If so, let me know if you carry around those kinds of things or if you think people should carry around those kinds of things in the comments down below. This next story is by idontworkherelady 203. literally pulled an "I don't work here" on a coworker. This definitely isn't the most interesting story, but I hope some people at least get a kick out of this. So to give a little backstory, I work in a hotel that is located behind another hotel owned by the same person. The owner has a friend that used to work at both hotels for 10 plus years, but was let go last year due to not actually doing any work while on his shift. Recently, due to the pandemic and the loss of a few staff members, the friend came back to help out with both hotels for the last 2 to 3 months. Still has the same habits as before, still not doing his work, but hey, at least I'm not pulling doubles. So about a week ago, he called me from the other hotel, in front of the hotel I work at, and asked for help about a billing issue. 5 minutes before my shift was over. I walked all the way over to the other hotel and saw there was no issue and tried to leave, but he kept me there to ask questions that admittedly he should have known a long time ago, seeing as he rejoined 3 months ago and had 10 plus years of experience. In the middle of his questions, the hotel phone starts ringing and he looks straight at me and says, "Can you pick it up?" I gave him the most dead bud look and had to say, "I'm sorry, I don't work here." Honestly, I have no idea what was going through his head when he asked me to pick up the phone, because I literally don't work there and know nothing about the other hotel. We do use generally the same reservation system, but the rooms and even the format is different. For somebody that supposedly worked there for over a decade, they had no clue how to do anything. It's shocking. Did they really collect a decade's worth of paychecks off of doing nothing and then get brought back? Oh my lord. This next story is by MrAaronMN. So you're shopping at Target the other day. Realistically, I should have seen this coming. I was in the electronics department at Target while wearing tan pants and a rust-colored hoodie. Of course, the lady thought I worked there. She was super polite upon approach, opening with, "Excuse me, would you please open the box so I can see what's in it?" "I don't actually work here." "But you're wearing the store's uniform." "Yeah, I know, I don't work for this company though." "Why are you dressed like that if you don't work here?" I must have given her the same face I give my kids when one of them asks a bizarre question. Personal favorites include, "Why do some people like to spread chaos?" and "Did you just pee in the dishwasher?" Her head snapped as though she had been gently yet firmly tapped upon the top of her head with the clue by 4 and said aloud, "Because that's what you're wearing today." And then she wandered off into the midst of housewares never to be seen again. Well, at least she was able to realize at the end that you weren't working there because it was just what you were wearing for the day. Although the exchange might be painful in recollection, the overall experience as a whole isn't something I would label painful, which is a positive compared to a lot of stories here. Our next story is by WebMaka. "Yes, I work here. No, I won't do side work for you." Not really sure if there's a good place per se for this story, but as the sub's tagline says, sweet Jesus, people can be stupid. Several years ago, I was helping my brother run his auto repair shop. Since he's a better tech than I am and I'm a better paper pusher than he is, he was out in the shop working on a car and I was running the office side of the operation. I recall that it was just the two of us. The other employees were out for the day because of it being a holiday weekend. So we were in skeleton crew / catch-up mode handling some personal and low priority stuff. A customer came in for some AC issues, so bro checked it over and relayed to me what it needed and I built an estimate for the customer. I don't recall the exact dollar amount, but it was a pretty big, expensive job, despite our having amongst the most reasonable pricing in town. Gave the customer the estimate and he left. Well, left the office anyway. He went into the shop. I watched him for a moment with a "what the heck is he doing?" before my attention was pulled to a ringing phone. A few minutes later, bro came into the office. Once I was off the phone, bro explained what happened. The customer that left the office and headed into the shop proper had come to him and asked him if he'd be interested in doing the repair work on the side. He had said to the customer, "Didn't he give you an estimate?" Customer had replied, "Yeah, but they're too darn expensive here. I can buy the parts if you want to do it." First off, in our state at the time, Florida, auto repair is a regulated industry that requires state licensing, so shade tree work is actually illegal statewide, with some specific exceptions like fleet maintenance for your employer. You must be state licensed to do any repairs for any form of compensation, including trades. Second, doing side work in the auto repair industry can get you fired from some shops, as by doing so, you're competing with your own employer, stealing a prospective customer, etc. Third, asking the owner of the shop to do side work because you don't want to pay the shop to do the work is probably not going to end well. Bro said that the moment he told the customer, "You do realize I'm the owner, right? The guy in the office is my brother," the color drained from his face and he couldn't get gone fast enough. Never saw that customer again, strangely enough. It is illegal, although I don't necessarily blame them for trying to get it cheaply done. Though I'm pretty sure you try and get much cheaper than a fairly priced repair shop and you're going to get probably a cheap result. I too, in that situation, would feel so much cringe that I would not be able to return. Our next story is by IamUnofficial. My dad owns this place. Hey Reddit, this is my very first post here, so if I do something wrong, please don't judge. This took place in China a few years ago. Please keep in mind that I'm not the best in Mandarin, so I will try my best to translate everything. My dad owns a restaurant, and whenever I go back to China, I like to help out there. I did not work there, nor do I look like I worked there. Side note, the restaurant includes places to drink tea, which is very common in China, and a bakery. I was at the restaurant one day, minding my own business and greeting all the staff. Mind you that I was around 12, although my friends say I look older than that. The waiters and the waitresses were all in their 20s and wore a uniform with the restaurant's logo. As a 12-year-old, this event was traumatizing, and I remember most of the details because this event is inked into my brain. I was walking to the bakery when an entitled woman stood up and stopped me. We are going to call her Kay from now on, short for Karen. "I want my drinks half off," in a snobby tone. "Okay." "Aren't you gonna do anything about this?" "No." Karen, extremely frustrated. "Aren't you gonna do something? I know the owner and I can get you fired in a quick second. You are an entitled waiter just walking around like you own this place. Who do you think you are, you filthy peasant?" Me, with tears in my eyes, I don't work. Luckily, my dad heard the shouting and came down. Dad says, "What's going on here?" "Who are you?" Mind you that my dad is very humble and only likes to wear plain t-shirts and old jeans. "What did you say to my daughter?" "Why do you care? It's not like this bothers you. You guys are just servants while I know the owner. He can fire you in a heartbeat." "I am the owner, and if you look down at people like that, it shows that you are not a good person. Pay and get out of my restaurant." Karen whimpers and nods. Her friends stood up and went inside to pay and they all left, glaring at Karen. Later, my dad told me that she was just an office worker who worked for my dad's friend's company. That explains the fake Gucci, and she was fired immediately. Her friends, or co-workers, still come here often and never ask for discounts. What I don't even understand is why was she acting like this? Like, obviously she's entitled, yes, but what made her so bold to just stand up and yell so aggressively at what she thought was a waitress about how they wanted their drinks half off? They just thought if they could be rude and aggressive like that and claim they know the owner and they can get them fired, they can get some kind of easy, cheap, abusive deal? I'm glad it definitely didn't work out the way they thought. Our next story is by DovaShy13. Wearing a mask doesn't make me a waitress. I come from a very small region in Germany with very little corona cases and therefore looser regulations. But I've lived for a couple of years in a bigger region now with one of the highest case numbers in Germany. So here you need to wear masks to enter any kind of public building, be it a shop, a pub, or a restaurant. So I'm used to carrying my mask all the time and put it on whenever I enter a building. I went back to my home region last week where you only need to wear a mask if you enter a shop or if you work at a restaurant or pub. When I went with my boyfriend to our favorite pub, I noticed I was the only customer inside wearing a mask, but I didn't mind as we were sitting outside and I only went in to use the restroom. On my way out, some guy approached me to order with me and I referred him to my friend who was working there. Right after, the next guy approached me wanting to know whether he could buy cigarettes at the pub. As this is my favorite place and I've been there multiple times, I told him where the vending machine was. Next day, I went to grab breakfast with a friend of mine at a new restaurant I had never been to. Here again, I was the only customer wearing a mask and the servers don't wear uniforms, so I get why people confused me for a waitress. This one woman though was really persistent. She approached me outside the restaurant on my way in and asked me how long the restaurant served breakfast. I told her I didn't know, sorry. She insisted I must know, and I realized even though we were outside, she must have mistaken me for a waitress as well. So I told her, sorry lady, I don't work here and I've been eating here for the first time, so I really don't know, sorry. She wouldn't have any of it. Told me I should know, and she only wanted to know how long she could order breakfast, and there was no need to be so rude. I am majorly confused by now. Luckily, a waitress comes by and I stop her and let her know that this lady would like to know the breakfast hours and leave them before the lady can ask me for a fourth time. The whole corona thing in general has just thrown everybody through a loop. I feel like getting confused because of the mask thing in an area where only employees are wearing them. It's pretty understandable, but if somebody says they don't work there and they tell you they don't know for 2-3 times, you should be able to give it up and realize that maybe they don't work there, or maybe they just don't know. And our final story of the day is by AXW3555. I am a personal friend of the owner. Who do you answer to? So as a disclaimer, this is one I witnessed, not one that directly happened to me. So when I was young, my mother worked for a car dealership owned by this really nice older guy. Like, this guy was really well off. Very well spoken. Not what an American would think of as a posh American accent, not that extreme, but if you're English, you've probably got a good idea. He owned the dealership, the building, the land, and at least half a dozen other businesses in the area, and most of the land and commercial properties in the town. But for all that, he was also the kind of guy who would hear that his staff's 14-year-old child was getting a hamster and go, "My daughter used to have a hamster." And 3 days later, he just gave my mom like 400 pounds worth of Rotastack hamster stuff. Every year, he'd do the whole showroom up for Christmas, dress up as Santa, and give out presents to the kids in the area, etc. Anyway, the reason I remember this was because it was the day my mom took me over to her work so I could say thank you for the hamster stuff. So we got there and we were waiting for him to be free. I was talking to the people at the desk because I knew all of them when suddenly we heard this woman's raised voice. Looked over to see this old woman, old to a 14-year-old, so she could have been anything between 40 and 60, with the owner, and she was absolutely laying into him because they couldn't do whatever it was she wanted. Now, everyone working there always wore a red jumper, but not a name badge because everyone's desk had a nameplate. By chance, I was wearing a reddish jumper, not the same red, not even a particularly similar red, that day. The woman comes up to me. I can only assume she must have been short-sighted or something because my 14-year-old face did not look anywhere near working age. I could more easily have passed for a 10-year-old than a 16 or 17-year-old, and my entire work experience at that point was help put magazines in envelopes to post for like £3 per 250. I need to book my car in and a loan car. Oh, the service desk is over there. No, I didn't sound like an adult either. No, I told you. Now go get it sorted. I need to be gone in 10 minutes. I'm sorry, I don't work here. I'm not even old enough. At that point, she cut me off and went off. I don't have time for your excuses. I need to be gone in 10 minutes. Now get me that loan car, you stupid freaking child. A moment later, a hand came down on my shoulder. I look up and who is it? Yep, the owner. I'll handle this, OP. How can I help, madam? I backed off to the service desk and watched. The service guys were already giving what the freak looks to each other, but the woman just got louder and shriller. I am a close personal friend of John Jeffries, the owner. Now I need my service and a loan car. Do you have a booking? I don't need a booking. I'm a friend of the owner. Unfortunately, madam, the workshop is fully booked today, but we can book you in for a later date. You'll do it today, that's it. Who do you answer to? At this point, everyone in the room and some back office staff were looking at her. This is where the owner gave an answer that I will never forget because it was so calm and quiet. Madam, I answer to no one but God. What? That's it? What's your name? You and that disrespectful child are gone. John Jeffries, the owner, and to the best of my knowledge, we've never met. Also, that child is literally a child, not an employee. She kind of froze, then he gestured to the org chart thing they used to have on the wall, with his face right at the top of it above the word owner. She laughed and earned the ignoble quality of being one of only 2 customers who he ever wrote to saying, "You are no longer welcome at our business," in over 35 years of owning the company. Calm, confident, and straight to the point. When you're John Jeffries and you probably own just about everything in a 10-mile radius, it's probably pretty easy to remain as calm as possible and just put somebody completely in their place like that. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today, so if you enjoyed the stories today, please consider giving the video a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. And if you had a favorite story of the day, let me know which one and why in the comments down below. But no matter what you did, whether it was liking, commenting, subscribing, whatever you did, thank you all so very much for supporting me right here on the Storytime channel. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and as always, I'll be back tomorrow with more Reddit stories right here on the Storytime channel.